Okay, welcome to Kyuzo podcast. This is episode 9, I think. I think we'll go with that. If it's not, I'm sure someone will correct me. This is a Q&A episode, so I have been asking for your questions. Coming up today, I'll give you a brief run through. We are going to deal with constraints-led approach training. So I've got a question on that, aka the ecological approach. The retirement age of oldies. We have also the correct length of shorts on a man. I'll deal with that right now. It's these ones here. Nice and high like Magnum PI. That's what I say. How I feel about jorts, which is another one. And I got a couple of shorts questions somehow. How to find your own A game and how my A game has developed over the course of the years. How to build a game plan and not be reactive. Building cardio off the mats that translates onto the mats. I think we could probably do an episode on that. And finally, with the hardest things about running a gym that people don't think of. So we're going to get into all of those. Before that we do that, let's do a little bit of recap on what we did last episode. So last episode was with the Gardaí. It was with Rory and Shane from Garda Síochána BJJ Club. I thought it was really good. The reaction was really good to it, really positive. Obviously, a lot of guys tuning in who are Gardaí themselves, so they were able to come in and then kind of have a sort of knowledgeable comment on that. But along with that, I just wanted to explain something about that episode because I did get a couple of comments about like how we didn't really deal with use of force and things like that. So the guys are serving members of the Gardaí, so there were certain restrictions that of what we could talk about and what we couldn't. So we did have to kind of dance around a few subjects, and you'll note that when we kind of took a break in the middle. I do always do about like 45 minutes with people, and then we take a break and we do another 45 minutes. And probably what you'll notice is that the second half is a lot more fluid because we kind of established a few ground rules at that stage, what we were going to talk about and what we couldn't talk about. Specifically, like, I think a lot of people maybe tune in and want to hear war stories, but you're not going to get that out of guys because obviously they'd have to wait till they retired before they spoke about things like that. So there was a lot of really interesting stuff in it, though. I know that the video, the segment we did on the video about the Red Man training went down really well with a lot of people. So thank you very much for your comments on that. It's been a really interesting period after that because a lot of people DMing and asking really good questions and making very positive comments about the episode. So I don't think we've had that up to now. I think, though, usually we only get gags like people commenting great episode or people ripping the piss out of us, which is fine too. We also got our first, on one of the shorts, we got our first weirdo. So the comment was, Garda Síochána, you mean the Irish police, the people who are supporting the invasion of Ireland? I was like, oh God, here they come again. Take a day off, pal. And maybe try, I don't know, talking to a girl, something like that. So we are moving on, though, with the next episode after this one, actually, by the way, is with Lindsay Doyle, aka the female fight nutritionist. Already recorded. You're going to really, really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. She's a lot of fun to talk to, but also has some really great practical, very simple advice on nutrition and stuff like that as well. So I really enjoyed that. That's coming out in a couple of weeks. So a couple of weeks after you hear this one, you'll hear that one. Okay, well, look, that's the kind of basics done. Let's get on with something from the question and answers then, before I bore you all to tears. Okay, so the first one I had to have a long think about. So the first question is, what are the hardest things about running a gym people don't think of? And I was going to answer really prosaically. I was going to say something along the lines of, well, rates are, very expensive. We pay about €8,000 in rates just alone a year, forgetting about our rent, which is also massively expensive. And we got to try and keep the lights on and energy prices keep rising. And I was going to go on and on in that very businessy way that would bore everybody to tears. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background of running anything, keeping the lights on and anything that are obviously really irritating, but they're just irritants. They just come with the territory. I have an answer for you, though, and it's probably not what you expect. The hardest thing about that people don't think of is maintaining the gym culture. So it's probably the thing that I work hardest on with the coaches here and with the students. We constantly talk about our culture, and we constantly talk about the things that we want the people here to learn. Obviously, we talk about technique, and we talk about how to organize classes, and we talk about coaching methods constantly. But more than that, we talk about what we want the atmosphere to be like, and what we want the training to be like in terms of the culture itself. So it comes as no surprise that it's fairly easy to stand in front of a class and teach it if you follow a set routine. So I could give somebody a list of things to do in a class, like a recipe. And I could say, okay, you're going to warm them up for 10 minutes. You're going to do this for 10 minutes. Then you're going to do that for 10 minutes. And then you're going to spar for 20 minutes. And they'd run a pretty good class. And nobody would notice the difference. But over time, you have to think about how people interact with each other, how you integrate new members, how the higher level people interact with quote unquote lower level people. You have to think about what it is that you actually want the atmosphere to be like on the mats. And it's actually like gardening. That's what I've discovered. It takes constant maintenance. So you can't just set your stall out and just hope that it will continue from there. You actually have to maintain it constantly. And part of the reason for that is that cultural shifts happen really, really quickly. So all it takes in an environment, if anybody who's a teacher out here will tell you this, by the way, all it takes is one asshole kid to ruin an entire class. So it's pretty much the same when it comes to jiu-jitsu as well. So all it takes is one dickhead who thinks he's better than everybody else, or she thinks she's better than everybody else. I don't want to be I don't want to be sexist towards men on this one, but it generally is a guy. But it's, or it takes someone who doesn't like somebody else and suddenly decides that they're not going to roll with them, or they're going to shun them in some way. Or it might be the other way around, where it might be just laziness, so where kind of an attitude takes hold where you take rounds off, or you don't try very hard, or you stop drilling in the middle, or anything else like that. So I'll give you an example of something that it's the most concrete example of a cultural change that I can think of. And it happened we're coming on about 15 years ago. So there used to be a lot less of us. So there was only about sort of the largest class that we could possibly have would be about 15 people. So we would come in training, and the group was very compact and very together. And we had a very good atmosphere in the gym, and we were all kind of friends or friendly. And a lot of these guys were my training partners as well as my students. So because I think I was around purple or brown belt level at the time, a lot of the guys were also purple belts, or just below me, or whatever it was, just below me in the grades, I mean. So we had a great atmosphere. It was a great time to train. But around this time, one or two people started to look for the break when we were doing sparring. So if we were doing, say, 10 rounds and there was an odd number of us, once we finished the round, guys were like shouting for the break. So in other words, the timer would go off and someone would shout, "My break!" And they'd run to the wall like as fast as they could to get a breather for the 5 minutes while everybody else trained. And suddenly it became this contest among not among everybody, because I wanted to roll all the time, and most people did as well, but among 4 or 5 others. And then when we had new people joining, they'd be kind of looking for the break as well. So that sounds really simple, and it is, but it's something that we had to eradicate. So I stood up and I said, no, we shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be looking for a break. So from now on, anybody who calls for my break just does burpees for the whole 5 minutes while the rest of us are rolling. So if you shout my break, you're looking for a rest. You're not looking to work. And we're here to work. We want to be here to work. So that was a thing that we had to alter. But that's very black and white, because that was something that could be visibly seen. There's other parts in the culture which, for example, might be, persistent lateness. People showing up 1 minute You know, if you show up 1 minute late, then next week you'll show up 2 minutes, and so on, 3, 4, 5. And of course, we rip the Mickey out of people who do that. You do show up consistently late, but I intentionally rip the piss out of people who are late. So when they walk in, I don't. So I say, "Oh, hey, welcome. Thanks very much." I always give them a bit of abuse for being late. I'm like, "Oh yeah, here we go. What's up?" I do it in a friendly way, of course, but I'm also trying to say to the people, look, it's not acceptable just to walk into a class late. You have to do the routine then, which is come up, stand at the edge of the mat, and ask to join. And when I told people that I did that, because that's the way it used to be in Taekwondo when I started, you couldn't come into a class late. You had to wait at the edge of the mat and ask the coach to join, which was just seen as respect. So we do that here. And people were like, "You make adults, grown people do that?" And I'm like, "What do you mean make? What is that make? I'm not forcing them to do anything. I'm not forcing them to be here. I'm just asking them to, when they join the class, not just to run in and I'm asking them to come over and introduce themselves and say, 'Hello, I'm here now. Sorry, I'm late,' which is just manners. So why not have that as a part of your culture in your academy? And why not have that level of respect for each other? Respect for the person taking the class, whether it's me or anybody else, and self-respect, which is like, I want to be early on time. I'm that type of person. If you want to talk about martial arts as a self-improvement method, well, surely that's one of the things that we're aiming for, isn't it? Respect for each other, respect for others, respect for yourself, manners, dignity, all those things. I don't know. They're part of what I think about anyway when I'm teaching. So there you go. That's the answer. The long-winded answer to your question is the thing that people don't think of is culture and how to set it. And I've seen culture go wrong. I've been in academies and in gyms and in environments where culture was bad. You've probably been in environments where there is, a dickhead or two who make the culture sour. You walk in and you actually dread walking into the place. I've seen that, and I was going to say I'm sure it goes on in jiu-jitsu. I'm in that sort of abstract way, but I am sure it goes on in jiu-jitsu because I hear about it all the time. And to try and keep that out of your academy in a sort of a competitive sport where everybody's there's a lot of kind of alpha types, is a difficult thing, and it takes constant maintenance, constant gardening. So there we go. Hope that answers your question. I did put in the thing that the hardest thing is dealing with you, but I don't mean that. I know this was James who asked it. James, you're a lovely guy. I don't mind dealing with you. Okay, next question. Building cardio off the mats that translates onto the mats. Like I said, I could do this for an hour. So the thing that we want to remember is that cardio, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, is very, very relative. So when you train with somebody, I think me and Nathan covered this the last time in the last Q&A session. The hardest round you will ever have, regardless of how good your cardio is and how in shape you are, is the round where the guy is one step ahead of you. So even if you are the fittest person in the world, if you could run a marathon tomorrow, or go and do the CrossFit Games tomorrow, or go and do a high rocks competition tomorrow. I was laughing already when I said a high rocks competition. I think high rocks, what do you do on that? You do some jumps, you throw some balls, and then you take 400 selfies. So you get your arm gets sore by doing this. But if you could do all that, but when you go down to the mats, as the fittest person in the academy, if somebody's slightly better than you, your cardio is going to suck. Because you'd be constantly chasing, you won't have time to set your breathing, you'll always have pressure on you. So my first answer is, if you want to have good cardio, or if you want to seemingly have good cardio, then have good skills. So work on your skills first, and your cardio will magically improve. In terms of building cardio that translates to the mats, I think that if you're, for example, starting your warm-up and you find yourself blowing, like you're wheezing for breath during your warm-ups, okay, now you probably have bad cardio. You're just unable to you're not fit enough to carry the day. So a good way to think about this is not so much in terms of cardio, because if we were thinking about cycling, we would be talking about or for running, running middle distances, you'd be talking about it's almost a pure cardiovascular thing. So it's about how well your heart and lungs can pump oxygenated blood around your body. But jiu-jitsu isn't like that. So jiu-jitsu is a real mixed bag when it comes to strength and conditioning. We do it for long periods. So we train for an hour and a half, whatever it is. We do it in short bursts. So we do it in 5, 6, 10-minute rounds. But then within those 10-minute rounds, we have short bursts. So we have bursts of energy that, like for a takedown, for a scramble, for a sweep, for a squeezing submission, that take 10 to 15 seconds or 30 seconds maximum. So it's not as simple as if you go out and you get on the exercise bike and you're able to do 30 minutes with your heart rate at 140. That's going to improve your jiu-jitsu. It might, if that's what's wrong with you, if that's the issue that you have. But it's not necessarily true. So what we always identify when we're working with athletes from a strength and conditioning point of view is the needs of the sport. So what are the demands of the sport? The demands of the sport is not that you're able to run for 40 minutes. It's not that you're able to bench press 120 kilos. The demands of the sport are really multifaceted. So in jiu-jitsu, we've got a lot of little things that we need to deal with and a lot of stuff that we need to have stronger or have more flexible, have more mobile. So that's the first thing we think of. We think of the demands of the sport. And then the second thing we think of is you, so the person himself. What's the weakest point? What's your weak link? So your weak link might not necessarily be your cardio. Like I say, if you're unable to run for a bus, probably your cardio needs to improve. But more than likely, you've either got a skills deficit if you're struggling all the time, and that's okay, that'll come in time. But more than that, I would say you need to take a step back and look at what's actually holding me back. It could be my strength. It could be how I can express my strength. Or it could be my cardio. I know that's a really long-winded answer and long way of saying it. But like I say, we could do probably an hour on that. My point, I suppose, to you is to answer the question without answering your question, which is it might not necessarily be your cardio. That's the problem. Most fitness work is good. Any fitness work where you're doing, if, for example, you train 3 times a week in jiu-jitsu, what you're doing on your off days, whether you're going to the gym, whether you're pushing weights, whether you're out doing hill sprints, whether you're working hard on the Aerodyne bike or anything else like that, I would say almost anything is good for you there if you're at a low level of fitness. If you're at a more reasonable level of fitness, if you feel that you're quite fit, well, then I think you need to identify what it is, what's your weak point, and how are you, what's holding you back. Okay, but I will stop with something useful because I don't like answering questions like that. I think for me, if you're talking about cardio, if we're just talking about pure cardio, so if we're just going to assume that you're blowing hard on the mats during training, during sparring, interval training for me is probably the best type of quote-unquote cardio that you can do. So what we're talking about is maximal efforts, the likes of maximal efforts for 30 seconds, rest 30 seconds, maximal efforts for 30 seconds, rest 30 seconds, on something like an Aerodyne bike, on a C2 rower, on maybe the ski erg or anything else like that. Or even on the exercise bike, set at high resistance, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 10 sets, and then probably you're you've covered 10 minutes of really high intensity stuff. So that for me, that's how I train when I'm going for competitions and I'm going for tournaments. I use interval training more than anything else because I think it replicates that heart rate profile that you require when you're in round. By the way, on my blog from a few months ago, I'll try and repost it. I'll try and remember to repost it. I did have some heart rate data from my training, so from sparring here, and you'll see a peak and a trough style thing. So when I'm going for cardio, when I'm thinking about cardio, that's what I think about trying to replicate. So rather than having a steady state heartbeat going up, like say 150 or 140 for 30 minutes, I try and make 10 minutes of up, down, rest and recover and then high intensity, rest and recover, high intensity, rest and recover, and so on. Okay, I hope that answers your question without being too kind of obtuse. So I think this is from the same person. How to build a game plan and not being reactive in roles. And actually, I'll combine this with another question, which is how to find your game and how you're So how to find your game and how to build a game plan and not be reactive. So the first thing, I suppose, I'll give you my boulder analogy, which is, I think I promised to give you this anyway when I answered on Instagram. So I want you to imagine that you're pushing a boulder up a hill. You're pushing a boulder up a mountain. The moment that you release the pressure, the boulder rolls back on you, right? So in your analogy there about talking about being reactive in roles, if you're allowing somebody's pressure to somebody to start their game on you, well, then you're reactive. If you're constantly pushing the boulder, then you're being proactive, and they're going to have to react to you. In one single round, there's always someone attacking and someone defending. There's never really any neutral positions unless both guys are being really lazy. So there's always somebody trying to put their game on you, and you're trying to put your game on them. So I think for me, I think both questions are kind of the same. The first thing that you need to do, I think, is identify the main positions in jiu-jitsu. So identify and look at what are the main positions in jiu-jitsu. So to break it down, there's about 9, okay, to give you a rough number. And then we can go positions and sub-positions. So let's count them off a little bit. So the first one I'd say is standing. So a takedown game. Pick 1 takedown. Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. Pick 1. Pick a single leg, pick a double leg, pick a body lock. And pick a front headlock, or pick a front headlock. So I'd say single leg, double leg, body lock, or front headlock. Pick one of those 4. I think Felipe Andrew was here, and he was saying single, double, and body lock. And I said, what about front headlock? And he went, I don't use it, so I don't care. So I was like, all right. But actually, I really like front headlock. So if you pick one of those 4 and say, that's the one that I have most success with now. So I'm going to build my stand-up game off that. Now, that doesn't mean that you're always going to do that single leg, but it might mean that when you attack that single leg, you've got reactions and so on, and branches that go off that single attack. So pick that one single attack from the standing position. Then let's think about guard. Close guard top and close guard bottom. Have something from close guard bottom that gives you attacks, sweeps, or submissions, or sweeps and submissions. Close guard top, think about how you open the close guard safely, how you make sure you don't get armbar, triangle, or swept, and how you begin to pass the guard. Open guard top, open guard bottom. So have something from the bottom that you use to get to your next best position. And again, limit that to 2 or 3 things. I should have said that for the close guard as well. Limit it to 2 or 3 things on bottom. And I would say actually from close guard top, 1 really good guard break, 1 really good postural guard break. Passing then, the open guard, have a way of entering your guard passes and putting pressure on your opponent. And just think about 1, 2, 3. Think about one thing that you do and branch off that to 2 or 3 ways. More common positions then. The next common positions are side control top, side control bottom. Again, very, very common, especially at the beginner level. Probably the most common pin in beginner level at white belt level is side control. So side control top, side control bottom. Have 1 or 2 escapes from the bottom. Have 1 or 2 attacks from the top. And then methods of getting to better positions. And then back control. Have really good back control. Have ways of getting to the back. And when you get there, have a really good finish. And back control front, for want of a better term, defending the back defense. Now, after that, you can start to branch out and you can go into other things like you can say, well, half guards, and I would count half guard, especially if you're older. I would count half guard as one of the main positions. Half guard top and half guard bottom. You can start to talk about all manner of other things, leg locks and so on. But if you can build off those kind of 8 or 9 things, and you can have 3 things maximum that you do, that you know that you do successfully with a reasonable degree of success off each of them, start with those and say, that is my quote unquote A game. For now. It might change, it might develop, and you might find it's working off your unique sets of skills, your unique body type, and to be honest, what you really like as well. What you really like to do is a huge determinant of that. But don't ignore them. Take a look at the statistics. Take a look at how much and how often those positions come up in training, come up in competition. There's a reason they come up a lot. It's because they're the best positions, top and bottom. Okay. And the second part of that question, I'll just phrase it correctly. I'll just pull out my phone again here and just phrase it correctly. The question, the part of it was how my own jiu-jitsu A game has evolved over the years. I don't think it's evolved too much, actually, to be honest. I think I put up a video on Instagram and it's me butterfly sweeping a guy at blue belt. I win a tournament at blue belt and I was butterfly sweeping a guy. And then it's me winning a tournament at black belt and it's me butterfly sweeping the guy and doing the exact same thing, like literally the exact same thing. So it hasn't developed all that much, apparently. It hasn't evolved all that much. The reason, by the way, I have a passable butterfly guard is not because I went, that's a really effective guard and I'm going to go try and learn that and I'm going to, build my game around it. The reason for that was that it was the first thing I was really good at in jiu-jitsu was actually butterfly. So I was okay I had spider guard when I was a white belt. I used to play spider guard all the time and I was good at it. But when I started to learn the butterfly really effectively, I found that it really suited me. And it was, so I really enjoyed doing it. And because I enjoyed doing it, I started to do it more. And so I built my, again, heavy air quotes because I use lots of different stuff, but my A game around the thing that I had the most success with. So I didn't think about, no one ever asked me. Like, I was kind of on my own. Like, I wouldn't say self-coached. I wouldn't describe it that as all. But I was on my own a lot training. So no one ever really directed me in any direction. I just found what I was good at and just followed it. And this is something that I think about a lot. And it's something that I try to drive home to a lot of people, which is I wouldn't follow the crowd too much when you're trying to build your game. I would look at what's actually successful for you because like butterfly was old hat for a long time and people were like sneh about the butterfly guard, but Wojcinski just won. He's just done the Grand Slam there. He's won everything. After with a butterfly based game, a magnificent butterfly based game. I love watching it for natural reasons because of course I love it myself. But so that's I think if you ask the internet, for want of a better comparison, if you ask the internet like 3 years ago what the best guard game is, probably they would say, you gotta have a good bolos and you gotta have this and you gotta have that, and it would be all the modern stuff. And by the way, I think a lot of what Wojcinski does is very modern in a sense, but I would say that part of the problem is too much information. So a lot of people thinking that they have to learn X or Y position, that this is the new stuff, this is the stuff they're seeing online, and you're constantly flooded with new technique. But actually, I think paring it down to the very basic things that really work for you and that you can get to work and that you're really comfortable with doing is a great way of starting. Because for me, the butterfly became the X and the X became the single X. And then when I started advancing up that, the X became a way of getting on top rather than just sweeping them off bottom. It became a way of single legging coming up, and my passing game developed off the positions that I landed in off butterfly and off X. So I had to come up with sequential passing sequences from there. So I had to come up with, I usually land in this, sort of shin crossed position, but like not the wrong, for me, the wrong side to pass. Usually I loved passing to my right, but passing to my left, but I kept coming up to where I would have to pass to my left, to my other side, to my right, to my quote unquote bad side. I'm using quote unquote quite a lot today, but it's I don't like to use these expressions, good or bad side. I don't like to use a game or anything else like that. So I think for me, again, the question being about how mine's evolved, it came off being really good at something, good at one thing, and then branching it out off that kind of thing that I was good at. And today, if I absolutely, positively, really want to sweep you, I'm going to bring you to the butterfly guard and start to work from there and work off reactions from that point. And so that's the blue belt me still had that sweep, but just didn't have the reactions and didn't have the skill level to really work off that and off that kind of platform. So I would pick something that you're very, very good at, that you know you're good at, and then build from there. Don't limit yourself to it. Don't say this is what I do. You should never say that, because you never know what might come along in the future to kind of make you think, well, I'll completely change my mind here on this one. But I would definitely say, if there's something that you're good at, make that your foundation. You know, if you're really effective with it, make it your foundation. Hopefully that answers that one for you. Next question. I'll ignore the shorts questions. They came up because I posted something up about Magnum PI, Tom Selleck. When men were men, with great mustaches and very short swimming shorts. So the second last question today was wonderfully auto-corrected. I'll read you what it should be. When should oldies retire? And is it almost inevitably through injury? What it was auto-corrected to was, when should oldies ride? And is it almost inevitably through injury? I can't stop laughing at that. I did get that it was an autocorrect, a misspelling. I won't answer the second one because we're going to keep this a family show. So many double entendres sprung to mind. So this is an interesting one. I don't know. I think I don't know when I, for example, will retire. I think for me, I'm always trying to keep myself on the mat. So everything I do is about keeping myself on the mat right now. So if I'm going to the gym, it's because I want to keep myself on the mat. If I'm going to go on the mat and train with a bunch of people, I'm thinking about my safety a lot more than I used to. So I think about, for example, scrambles. I think about, like, if I'm with somebody who I know is wild, I'll play really safe. I'll play a really conservative game where I don't get bent out of shape too much. So I want to stay on the mat for as long as I want to stay on the mat. And I think there's guys in there who are training pretty decently, and they're in their 50s. We've got a couple of guys here who train really well, and they're like early 50s, 52, 53. And I don't see them slowing down. What I see from them is that they are very technical and that they train in a very, I would say, conservative way. They don't get involved in too many silly scrambles and stuff like that. So the question about injury and will it kind of force you off the mat? I think every time I do get injured now, I think, oh, is this my last one? So is this the last one? And I got an injury about 3 years ago to my knee, and it had like a really profound effect on me. So in other words, it was an injury that totally changed how I was able to train. So I'm still not very comfortable. Essentially, one of my ligaments is almost kind of gone on one knee. So I have to guard that knee really carefully. And that's not, I don't mean that from submission. I mean, when somebody puts a De La Riva hook on that side, I have to just essentially give up the position. So I can't brace and turn around back into it. If I feel it's getting turned or twisted underneath me, I'll just sit on my ass and I'll just let the guy have the top position. And all of this is very, it's very practical. So that injury was I think very, very close to kind of stopping me from training? No, I think that's fair. Let me rescind that. Not stopping me from training, but stopping me from trying to train hard, like competition style. So it was very close to doing that. I had a long think about when I got that one. I was thinking, if that was a little bit worse, it was bad enough. But if it was a little bit worse, it would have required maybe knee surgery, potentially kind of reconstructive surgery. If it was just a little bit on the other side, and to be honest, if I wasn't as experienced as I am with like injury rehabilitation and stuff like that, probably I might have gone down the surgical route, and that would have taken probably 6 months to a year out of my career, the coaching career, my jiu-jitsu career, if you want. So that would have been a really significant impact, and that definitely would have forced me to never train like competition hard again or anything else like that. I know it would have. Now, however, I just manage that. So I just look after it. I just say, okay, that's something I can't do anymore. And the profound impact that I would say that has had is that I am worse at jiu-jitsu than I was before that injury. So previous injuries, I could still adapt to them and then move on from there. And in fact, I always say this about I had neck surgery, and it improved my jiu-jitsu. So my neck surgery actually made me better. And how that made me better was I got a neck fusion, and I got a cervical fusion. So there's a disc. I've got a plastic disc in there instead of a normal disc, and I got a big titanium plate on it. And I started to guard my neck really well, and suddenly nobody was getting me in guillotines anymore, because I was afraid of guillotines, and I was afraid of getting swept onto my head. I was afraid of driving my head in when I was passing guard. And suddenly all those things weren't happening. And I was like, well, how come nobody's guillotining me anymore? Like, what's happening? And the short answer was my posture was fixed. I was guarding my neck so much that I realized, and I watched a video of myself passing the guard one day, and I went, oh God, that's the way I should have been passing all along. I shouldn't be driving in my head so much. I can use my head now and then, but I shouldn't be committing my head forwards. I shouldn't be committing my weights forwards. I should be trying to maintain posture, maintain my balance. And I went, oh, look at that. I'm actually much better at passing guard because I hurt my neck. So it actually improved me, to be honest. It really did. And it improved my understanding of how to coach as well and how to teach. Which was bizarre. But when I got the knee injury, something changed. So it was a thing where I was like, okay, this one has definitely slowed me down, and it has definitely made me more conservative, and it is definitely making me accept more positions, accept that I'm swept, for example, or accept that I'm taken down. So I'll probably, if I'm training with people in stand-up and I feel them kind of in the moment they start to reap my leg or go for anything, like even like something simple like Uchimata, I go, okay, that's yours, checkmate. And I just fall and I play my guard from there. So that one changed me. That one did. So I don't think that one injury is going to force me off the mat. I think each successive injury as an oldie, as someone who's about to tick the 47, I think each successive injury is just going to take something away slightly. But one of my dad's mates was still training judo in his 80s. So if he's still doing that, I don't know if he's still around. I don't know if he's still with us, but he was training judo in his 80s. So that's my goal. That's my plan. So that's another 40 years, 30 something at least. So I'll go ahead and say, not necessarily, not yet. Okay. This is the last question today, and I wanted to take a moment. Hello, Jiu-Jitsu people, the few hundred people who watch this podcast. Let's all take a breather. Let's all take a moment. Let's all take a moment and ask ourselves what we're actually trying to achieve when we debate online about coaching methods in Jiu-Jitsu. Let's have a think about it. And let's have a think about ourselves. So I have two major goals in life that I'm going to share with you now. Two major professional goals. I'm going to share them with you now because I'm 47 now. So it's a long time in coaching, a long time in Jiu-Jitsu. I've seen a lot come and go. And I'm starting to think about, what do I really want to affect here in Irish Jiu-Jitsu? I do think about that a lot. Do I want to, have more Irish Open champions, more European champions, whatever it is? Do I want to create more black belts and all that kind of stuff? But of course, I don't want to do all that. That's perfectly fine. But I'm thinking more long term. So I have two major goals. My number one goal with Kyuzo here in this academy is to make Jiu-Jitsu the number one indoor sport in this area. So in Cabra Fingers, Glasnevin, I want to make it the number one indoor sport. I want it to be the thing that parents think of when they want to send their kids to an indoor sport during the winter. I want it to be the thing that is on everybody's mind for self-defense, for fitness, for fun, for staying active as you get a bit older, whatever it is. And I want to do that in conjunction with the other clubs around here, with Team Rhino, with Royal Grappling Academy, with all those guys. I want Jiu-Jitsu to be a really positive place to be and a positive thing, which I guess comes back to the cultural question from earlier in the episode. My second major goal, by the way, which we won't deal with now, is with Ireland BJJ, is to make Jiu-Jitsu the largest martial art in Ireland, and to create a permanent structure so that when that will last the test of time. So in other words, structures and put structures and procedures in place that mean that it will be sustainable over the long term. So in other words, when I'm no longer doing the events, that somebody else can easily just slip in and do it, and the sport will have a good foundation at the end of it. So those are my two things, and the two really, really big ambitions, because of course they're very hard to achieve. Right. So, but I'm making plans. Which brings me to why we do a podcast here. So we don't do a podcast just to promote Kyuzo or anything like that. We do a podcast here so that people can hear the other side of people's stories about Jiu-Jitsu. For example, the Gardaí we had in the last episode, Jack Dolan we've had here about autism, about special needs coaching, about all those other things. You'll note that there's a theme with the guests that we have on. It's all about positivity. It's about the journeys that people go on, and about how they've used Jiu-Jitsu in some way or another to either have a great professional career like Nathan's had, or Paul Redmond's had, or to use it as stress relief for a very stressful and busy job like the Gardaí do, or in terms of like special needs and stuff like that with Sean Davitt, and so on. So there's a theme here, right? There's a theme. So there's also a theme of what we don't do, which is crib and bitch and moan about the sport that we have, about our martial arts. That's also a huge part of the theme. So I don't spend any energy or any time complaining and moaning about almost anything. There's enough negativity out there. You guys can find it anywhere. If you want to go and find some positive vibes, come here. Come listen. You'll hear good information. You'll hear positivity, and you'll hear what's good about our martial art. I hope. Anyway, I hope so. So, this leads us to our last question, which might sound a little bit of a non sequitur, but it is related, I promise. The thoughts on the fastest way to learn BJJ. Is CLA the best, etc., etc.? So CLA, I had to look that up. It's constraints-led approach, aka the ecological approach. Now, let's link this together. So the debate is on the current debate online, if you haven't been following it, and you shouldn't be following it, is what is the best way to train jiu-jitsu, to teach people? Is it the ecological approach, which is this, it's not a new approach, by the way. It's been around for many years in other sports. Is it dry drilling, technical drilling against a non-resistant partner, where you learn the technique and then you go and you try to put it into practice either in positional sparring or full sparring? Or is it the ecological approach, where we break it down into a micro game where you have a resisting partner and you're trying to just do one small part of the game before expanding it on further, and so on? And the shorter answer is whatever your coach is doing is probably okay, as long as you're enjoying it and you're having a good time and you're learning properly, and so on. So I don't know the best approach. If I knew it, Would I share it with you guys? I don't know if I would, to be honest, because I would have the secret sauce. If I had the best approach, I would have the secret sauce, and I'd probably keep it to myself and share it with my coaches. And I'd probably then say, well, look, if you want to come learn this perfect best way, it's, €95 for a day. I'll teach you to do it for 6 hours. You'll get a certification at the end of it. If I knew that, that's what I would do. If I knew the best way to learn, I wouldn't keep experimenting with new ways, and I'm constantly experimenting with new ways. The problem is that once you turn around and say this is the best way or that is the best way, you take a sort of evangelical position, you take this kind of dogmatic position where you say this is the way that we do it and this is the only way that we do it and we're never going to change and blah, 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 blah. So that's the only thing, that's the only wrong way, I think I would say. But I've been at coaching courses over the years. I've been at so many different symposiums and coaching from other sports. The most actually I've ever learned from coaching, I've learned from other sports. I haven't learned it through martial arts coaches and coaching. I've learned it from other sports and how they use their frameworks to try to get the most amount of people in so that they can start to train them. So rather than training one-to-one, I think anybody can do well with an athlete on almost a one-to-one basis or on a very small class basis. If you've got 5 good athletes together who are all pushing each other, almost anybody will do well there. But rather than on a mass participation basis, so when you've got 30 people, how do you get those guys, all of those guys, to try and do it? And to try to get those guys up to a good level, a specific level that you're aiming for. So I've done all those courses. I've been around there. What I've never noticed in any other sports is an online debate, where 1 or 2 coaches are pushing this ideology and saying, no, this is the best way. We have the best way. The rest of you guys are idiots. You're all stupid. And you don't know what you're doing. We know what we're doing. Your way is the old way. It's crap. It just doesn't happen. Maybe it does happen. I don't know. Maybe it does. I'm not just involved in them. But I can't imagine a football coach going online with somebody else and saying like, let's have and I saw there was an online debate, wasn't there, between 2 guys, about ecological coaching and old style or traditional style coaching. I can't imagine 2 football coaches I can't imagine them sitting down going, okay, I'm going to debate this guy tonight. And I want you guys to be able to, come and watch it. And we're all going to sit down and I'm going to, debate why dribbling around cones is the best. And he's going to say why doing small matches are the best. It just wouldn't happen. It's ridiculous. There's so much negativity and cribbing and bitching and moaning that goes on around jiu-jitsu. And it is absolutely ridiculous. It is really ridiculous because we have so much positivity. There's so much good going on. The sport is growing rapidly and it's still growing. And we've got so much more work to do on how we make it sustainable over the long term. And instead, people spend their time moaning about it and moaning about others and the way other people do it. It's not even about the way their own coaches do it or the way that their own. It's like, look at you guys over there. You guys are doing it wrong. If they're doing it wrong, what do you care about? Then you're going to get better than them faster. So leave them alone. Let them do whatever it is they're doing. Because I see the same thing all the time. Oh, the old style method is just guys come in and then you do the technique and then you just go sparring. And that's the old school method. It's like, yeah, all these guys became world champions with that method. I think they did okay. And anyway, if you have a better method, just leave them do it. Who cares? Who cares? Why do you care so much? I have one bit of advice for you. If you are online, if you're the sort of person who's online and you find yourself reading those comments and watching those videos about what's the best coaching method, I get it that you might be interested, but really, how much time do you have on your hands? And could it be spent doing something more constructive? If you can't spend it training, perhaps, read a book or, learn how to talk to a girl, because these are very, very important skills. And I can't believe the amount of times people send me these chains of comments under posts like this, and it's all the same usernames come up all the time. And I'm like, how much time did these guys have? Really? Really? This is the macro level of jiu-jitsu interest. The more positive energy with more time spent promoting the sport positively with all of its benefits, all of the great things that we get to do, all of the stuff that we enjoy. that's time much better spent than sitting around thinking about, like, what's the best method to drill and arguing about it, like cribbing and moaning. Let me tell you the number one thing. So let me answer the question on a general basis. Let me just read the question again so I can get your point. Thoughts on the fastest way to learn BJJ? I actually have it. I do have the secret sauce. Come to my course, €95. I'll put it on one Saturday. I'll give you a certification, but let me give you it in a shorter form for free right here now. Find somewhere with a reasonably decent black or brown belt level coach, where the people are nice, where the training is good and fun, that you really enjoy, and that you say to yourself, this place is somewhere that I will come back to over and over and over again because I like the atmosphere, I like the training, and I like the people. And if you can do that, you will become good because you will have enthusiasm every time you show up, which is the most important quality anybody should have. Don't pick the best and the elite academy just because it is that, if it's like 25 kilometers away from you, unless you want to be a world champion, unless you want to do that. If you want to do that, then probably you're going to have to go and you're going to have to travel. But pick the one that's close to your house that you can go to really regularly, where you like the people, the atmosphere is right, there's no assholes, and that's the academy for you. And that's the fastest way to learn jiu-jitsu, is to go somewhere you're really enjoying it and you really like it, and you'll have the enthusiasm to return to over and over again for a consistent period of time. That's my last word on that subject. If anybody else sends in anything about ecological coaching, I swear to God, I will cancel this whole damn podcast. I know what you're saying. Don't threaten me with a good time. But that's about the ninth. Honestly, that's about the ninth question I've had in about ecological coaching, and that's the only time I will ever deal with it. I'm not putting it up again because I'm not getting involved in that debate. It's just let people at it. If they want to have a row about it, let them have a row about it. I have zero interest. I went on a bit long. Sorry, the answer to that last one, and that's the most negative I'm ever going to be. I promise, based upon what I said earlier. Okay, we're going to finish up with that. Thanks very much for all your questions. I didn't get to a couple of them because we actually got a metric ton of them this month. So I do apologize if I didn't get to them. I'll try to get to them into a future episode. And there's plenty of them coming. If you do have a question, however, keep an eye on @GrapplerMan or @Kyuzo Jiu-Jitsu. If you follow us on there, you'll see on the stories every now and again I put up a question box. Those questions go up, and we have a question answer episode, I think once a month, thereabouts. So your opportunity to ask questions and to get the answers to them, or at the very least my opinions on them. So that's that. Thanks very much. You can listen to us here. Make sure you subscribe on Spotify or YouTube, wherever you're listening, and keep an eye out for future episodes. Thank you very much once again for watching. It's lovely to have your company, and we'll see you soon.